You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
There are a lot of things to love about Palomo Mezcal Artisanal. My friend, Carlos Mendez Blas, makes Palomo Mezcal by cooking his agaves underground, milling those cooked agaves with a horse-pulled stone wheel, fermenting that in open-air wooden barrels and distilling it in wood-fired copper pot stills, the same way his great-great-grandparents made it more than a century ago. You'll also love it because it tastes like it was made more than a century ago. It tastes like history. So reach back in time and grab a bottle of Palomo Mezcal Artisanal. Great in cocktails, great on its own. Heritage Radio Network is proud to be sponsored by Hearst Ranch. The Hearst family has been raising cattle on the rich, sustainable, native grasslands of California's Central Coast for over 150 years. Piedra Blanca Rancho in San Simeon is the original Hearst Ranch, founded by George Hearst in 1865. And George's son was the famous publisher William Randolph Hearst. In addition to being known for building the iconic Hearst Castle, William was, like his father before him, an avid rancher. In his words, "I would rather spend a month at the ranch than any place in the world." Thanks to one of the largest land conservation easements in California history, a joint effort with the California Rangeland Trust, the American Land Conservancy, and the state of California, the working landscape at Hearst Ranch will be preserved forever. Learn more about Hearst Ranch at HearstRanch.com. I'm Lou Bank.
I'm Linda Sullivan.
This is Agave Road Trip, the critically acclaimed award-winning podcast that helps drink partners
understand
better
agave
and agave spirits
and
rural Mexico. Okay, so Linda, I've got a thing I want to talk about, and I have a theory about the thing, and I'm not even sure that I agree with myself about the theory.
Hilarious. I love this intro.
So I was recently visiting a restaurant bar owner, really, really nice guy. And he gave me these two bottles that are specialty batches that he does for his bar. And they're, well, I think they're great. That one I've tried, and it's great. This one I haven't tried yet, but we'll try it because we're in a car, and that's the time to try drinks.
Are you naming them?
No. I don't want to name them because I think I'm coming at this from a negative.
Oh, okay.
Which is why I'm also not naming the bar restaurant, because I really like the guy, and I don't think that this was... So here's my point, right?
Yep.
These are two special releases done for a bar. Okay. And they are both both mezcals?
This is agave spirit, so
right, an agave
it's
spirit
probably not
and a mezcal.
certified, right?
And so why am I bringing this up? Why is this even a conversation we're having? It's because I have a theory that I haven't really thought through yet, which is why it's perfect for an episode of Agave Road Trip, where...
This is where we work it out.
Yeah, exactly. Where I think maybe this further confuses the marketplace, right? So what's my point? My point is this. Mezcal as an expression, and it is an expression, not a category, because the category is agave spirits. Mm-hmm. Mezcal as an expression is very confusing. I think even tequila can be confusing now. You got, your Blanco, your Reposado, your Añejo, your Extra Añejo. And
right,
now this,
you mean kind of all the categories within the categories, right, muddy it up?
And people don't really, and Cristalino, people don't really, and the flavors, people don't really understand even tequila, I think. And then mezcal, when you start adding in all the different processes, and then you add in all the different agaves and all the different places, I think it can be very confusing for a consumer.
I think that's I completely agree with that point. And I think about it a lot because when I choose how to talk about mezcal in a workshop or a class, I'm definitely cliff noting, spark notes, remember?
Simplifying? I don't remember spark notes. That was after my time.
And trying to recognize who my audience is, right? Maybe I have a casual, like agave audience, right? Not like our esteemed listeners of Gringex bartenders, people who appreciate, but they're not aficionados, right?
Right.
They will They're open, they want to learn, but they don't maybe know already all those details. And I have to kind of pick and choose, right? I'm not going to go off. I will lose people. I'll lose their attention if I go too deep into something that feels confusing for them.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's true.
So, I feel that way. But then on the other hand, I wonder if having these specialty batches is a thing that can interest someone who wouldn't be otherwise paying much attention to mezcal. So, oh wait, this is unique to only this place? Well, I want to try that.
Oh, yeah. Well, come on, folks love the VIP experience.
Right, and the unique.
That's what a special batch feels like. It feels like I can only, I can't even buy it. I can only taste it at this restaurant or this bar, or I got one bottle of 30. Like, people like that feeling of special.
Right, it can draw them in.
100%.
But then, on the other hand, so now how many hands are we on? I think this is the third hand.
Octopus.
On the other hand, right, does that turn the spirit into, does it put the spirit at risk of becoming a collectible thing?
Yeah, like a commodity more than a juice we're actually going to enjoy.
Right, like, I'm going to buy it and just put it in my basement and never open it, which is a lot of the bottles, by the way, in my basements.
I'm here to help, Lou. Here to help. But yes, so that's kind of what has happened in whiskey. And
Exactly.
I feel I often go back to that because whiskey tends to be a spirit that in a few ways we just feel more comfortable with or more familiar with, right? There's the aging gives nice soft round corners, and then it's made in America. So there's, a combination of maybe familiarity and pride there.
Sort of, though I would also argue that I think a lot of people who drink bourbon have no idea it's whiskey.
I give folks a little more credit than that. Maybe I'm just being nice. I think folks mostly know. Do on Instagram stories, one of those polls where everybody can click.
Who follows us will know.
Oh, yeah, good point. True. Yeah. I'll post it on mine then.
But then the other thing I think about is, when, like you and I were just recording another episode and looking at bottles of Mazonte. And when you're looking at a bottle of Mazonte, you're generally looking at something that itself was only 120 liters.
Right,
and then
right.
maybe,
like every bottle is a specialty batch. Is kind of the space you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And do you take away from that? Do you sort of obfuscate that fact by saying, well, this is a special batch unique only to our place?
Well, okay, one thing that comes to mind is a lot of narrative that I've experienced from Mexican friends and producers is the kind of, when you're talking about the journey of mezcal, maybe like how it's, I know you're going to say the 3% of agave spirits, you're like, it's not that popular.
3.5.
3.5. But mezcal, I will say, sort of like from a layman's perspective, as an educator in Chicago, is much more understood by the regular person than it was 10 or 15 years ago.
I think it's more identified. I don't think it's more understood.
Identified.
Yeah, I think 10 or 15 years ago, the vast majority of people, if you said, do you know what mezcal is, would have thought it was a drug. They would have confused it with mescaline.
Maybe, but now I would say a lot of people would say, or they know that it's like connected to tequila. They know that they're like kind of sisters swimming in the same world. I think there's a lot of awareness of that in Chicago.
More, but that's still, I would argue that's not really understanding mezcal. It's just recognizing it, identifying it.
Well, okay. Yeah. First step in a long journey that I would like everyone to go on.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
So like that's the direction that the arrow is pointed.
Yeah.
What was my point? Do you remember? Hey, comment in the notes if you remember what my point was. Shiitake mushrooms.
Well, look, if your point was supposed to be that, okay, now more people recognize it, and maybe they recognize mezcal or identify mezcal because of the growing market for it, then that kind of gets back to the idea that, well, specialty releases can, when I was at Marvel, this is one of the things that we did was limited edition releases of standard issue comic books to try to get collectors excited and paying attention. Now, the end result to that was we created a market that was strictly speculators, people who were buying comics with the anticipation they could sell them for a lot more money down the road.
So more like, not comics lovers, business sort of minded folks that saw an opportunity.
Yeah, a bunch of 12-year-old investors. And and the end result was the collapse of the market for comics, which like.
So your fear here is that by creating a category, sort of a subcategory of something special, you might be cutting off the greater category at the knees?
Yeah, maybe not at the knees, but that you could end up misdirecting people from appreciate this because this specific bottle, because it was made traditionally in a community where they've been making it this way for hundreds of years, taste it and get a sense of what's important to that community, right? Like that's beautiful, but then
sounds gorgeous. I love that.
But that's not what you're by and large getting at specialty batches. It's okay, some guy comes in from the USA, says, "Okay, I want this agave and this agave."
I see. You're talking about the kind of the difference of influence. The specialty bottle, if it's released sort of more as a commodity or a collector's, that takes us further from the communities that are reflected in.
I think it can.
It can. Well, okay, but what about the narrative?
Again, I'm still not sure where.
I have no idea what my position is or if I agree with myself.
but you know,
the narrative of mezcal that I have heard so many times, and maybe this was my point from before. You just got to be patient sometimes for the Swiss cheese brain to work. Is that mezcal is or has been for decades, centuries, celebratory, right? There's a conversation there about folks, Gringex folks, buying it, that it used to be, we're going to do this like pechuga because my daughter's getting married, right? That's a specialty batch in the old school sense.
Right.
So the difference here is, are we celebrating and still reflecting maybe the rural family, the producer, the narrative there? Or are we creating a specialty batch because some white guy said, I want some exclusive mezcal?
Well, there are also black and brown people who own bars and restaurants. But to your
true.
Thank you. But to your point, I think that's another thing that gives me pause. And I think in trying to figure out why I wanted to have this conversation with you on this podcast, I think it comes down to, I don't know how I feel. And I'm wondering if the people who make these purchases for batches have this same inner dialogue, or I guess inner monologue, about the reasoning. Does that make sense?
What's their inner dialogue? To collect and keep and not enjoy?
Well, maybe, I don't know. And let's put it this way: it's never going to be one thing. It's going to be different from one person to the next.
Of course.
But I guess if a Gringex bartender listening to this episode is looking down the street at the bar that has a specialty batch and is thinking, well, I want one too. Maybe the thing I want, maybe I truly don't know. Maybe the thing I want is for that person to stop, take a breath, and say, well, why do I want it? Is it just ego? Like, this guy has it, and so I need it? Mm-hmm. Is it, I don't want my customers to be driven to that place because they have something special and I don't?
I want them to come to my place instead. Because there's more factors in it than just the... just the bottle or the juice inside. There's this idea of like drawing business and marketing and making it right. That's
which I get,
capitalism.
But then I also think about if that is the case, and I don't run a bar or restaurant, and I look at Rick Bayless, our mutual friend, and I look at how he conducts his business, how he's always welcoming other chefs, other bars and restaurants into his space to try to help promote them and share them with his audience. And I wonder if that isn't like, if you see somebody down the road who's doing this and you think, well, I need mine, maybe the thing to do is, okay, if they get a bottle that's made by a specific Mezcalerex, then you should get one by that exact same Mezcalerex so that you can say, we've got this, and then go down a block.
Love that. I love
like maybe
that.
That's what I'm getting at. I don't honestly know.
I really like that idea. I think that that's a cool way for like networking, first of all, because it should be to me, I appreciate more collaboration than competition in those kinds of scenarios, right? Don't come to me every day and not go to my partner or my down the street business. We all want small business to thrive, right?
Yeah.
I would hope that that's what the owner feels. That's what I feel. But like if a producer comes in or works together with multiple locations. This has happened many times in Chicago. Multiple different brands have done that, maybe flown down or the business owner comes down. They could pick a barrel, right? This is true in whiskey too. Or they could, taste 3 or 4 different ones that the producer made and said, oh, we love this one. Can we have exclusivity in Chicago? Now, for example, something cool comes into market. It's only at one bottle shop and one bar. To me, as an agave nerd, that feels exciting. I can't have it at my home, but I can go patronize this bar and say, wow, what a cool expression that you guys brought in. That was exciting. And then maybe I go to the bottle shop and say, hey, you have any left? I would be willing to pay what is probably a higher price, right?
Mm-hmm.
For these specialty bottles to also feel super cool and VIP that I have this bottle that only X amount were exported to the US and they're only in Chicago and St. Louis or something. God, I think that's cool.
There's this book that really informed a lot of my decisions when I was at Marvel called Collecting an Unruly Passion. And it was somebody's, I think it was doctorate paper, where he was trying to understand why people collect. And in essence, it came down to exactly what you're saying, which is, though I don't think you're being overt about it, or at least not as overt as the book. In essence, what you're saying is my identity is the things I own. And
ooh.
Yeah. And if I've got something that somebody else does not have, that makes me more special than somebody else. And, I understand that as a marketing principle, but I think that also, again, becomes a short-term marketing principle that it becomes a short-term marketing principle that relies on scarcity and relies on somebody else not having something that you don't have, right? But then I also recognize that as kind of counterintuitive to what I think, what I feel the best of these spirits represents, which is these beautiful communities. It's the opposite of community. It's saying, I'm better than this person, instead of saying, I am part of this place. And I know that that's kind of an abstract stretch among the points.
I know, I can see that being true. That doesn't feel like my character. That feels to me like, I bring back maybe before an agave or a bottle is released in the U.S., we go down and I bring one back. I am dying to share it, to invite folks I know or to host a class and let people come to it. And you do this too, right? You do these tastings.
Oh God, I'm literally doing.
You've got one on the calendar for, isn't that this week?
No, I've got 2 this week.
So by the time this podcast launches, these will already be passed. But your description for one of those events is, these are not in market yet. These are going to be exclusive tastes of these agave from this producer. And we're also looking for feedback, right?
No, I'm not looking for feedback.
You said in the one ticket that you're.
Oh, I didn't say that. That was
whoever.
That was Adam. I would come on. I don't look for feedback.
Well, right.
You know that.
Well, but
that requires reflection.
That's true. Shout out to Adam. He does a great job of.
That would
liaison.
That would be Adam Kamen at Off Premise in Chicago.
Exactly.
Great bottle shop. Sorry, keep going.
Great bottle shop, and super personalized, really hand selected. Like, there's a lot of trust that he establishes with his clients that regularly come back to him. It's a beautiful example of how small business can work, but he has all kinds of special stuff that is not available somewhere else. And because of like the trust that he's established with people, they say, what do you have that I might like? What I try because I come in here for your tasting every Friday, each week, blah, blah, blah. Like, that to me is a tool for connection and community and sharing the stories, right? I like to be a storyteller. I want to tell you what is so cool that I learned when I picked up this agave from Durango, or when I sat with Adam and he tasted me out on a Mexican rum. I didn't even know there was Mexican rum, right? It's like discovery, excitement, connection.
So literally, I was in his place yesterday dropping off the bottles for the Sunday tasting, and there was just a wall of boxes next to him, and it was a daunting wall of boxes that was full of a special limited release batch of Alambique Serrano. I think that's the name of Jason's rum.
Yes, that's the rum I had in mind when I was just mentioning that.
Oh, that's so funny.
I tasted that's in. It's not. Is it under Cinco Sentidos or is it a separate thing that he's doing?
I mean, it's
well, really reputable to me.
Jason
reputable,
Cox.
Owner, company.
Tallest, thinnest, whitest man you've ever seen in rural Mexico.
Amazing. Yeah.
Unless John Darby's with us.
Totally true. Totally true. That's great. They stand out, man.
Yeah.
But that's a great example is that, he is discovering, he's doing the work of like, what's cool and new? What would my clients like? Bringing it into the market like this, superhero liaison between folks who are wanting to nerd out and producers who have cool stories. So like, I can't think of a single neutral or negative thing to say about any special batch coming in with him in mind, right? That just one example.
Yeah.
Like, there's not, if there are people collecting, well, I don't know. My personal opinion is like, what a waste. Drink it with friends. Because I'm not a collector and neither have I ever or probably will ever be rich enough to be a collector.
Yeah.
That requires a lot of money for you to just sit with liquid on the shelf. Maybe you're going to resell it. Maybe you like having it, but that's not where my mindset is.
Is it a lot of money or a lot of discipline? Come on, you can be honest with us, Linda.
I mean, for me, it would be money and discipline.
If there's a bottle in my house, I'm just going to empty that thing right into my big old, what'd you call it? Not your gullet. What is
my
it?
boca.
My boca.
Yeah, bocota is like big mouth.
Bocota.
My friends have nicknamed me with
That's
that.
Nice. I like that.
Bocota. I talk a lot.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, I wanted to have the conversation because I'm not sure where I fall on this. I see, and I think this is kind of true of most things in life. I see positives, I see negatives, I see problems, and I see benefits.
Well, there's also an intention versus impact kind of detail there. Like you mentioned, if the intention is, well, I'm a gringo and I saw my neighbor's restaurant have this and I want to have something cooler, specialer, better. That's a different intent than, hey, this is a celebration. We're making this pechuga. My daughter's getting married, right?
Some dance to remember, some dance to forget.
Hey, there you go. Make it a bumper sticker. Probably already exists.
Okay, I think we have bled this one out, Linda. What do you think?
Would love to hear. I want the comments section to go crazy on this one. Go at the comments like you're in a Facebook mezcal group. Go.
Or even better, a bourbon mezcal, a bourbon Facebook group.
Yikes.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Until next time. La próxima vez.
And hey, Linda, if I don't see you beforehand, have yourself a merry little Christmas.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas.
I'm not.
Feliz Navidad, Lou.
Hasta pronto. You've been listening to Agave Road Trip, the critically acclaimed award-winning podcast that helps Gringex bartenders better understand agave spirits, and rural Mexico. We're blessed with sound engineering by Roy Sierra and a theme song performed by Gabriel Oliveira and Marco Ricos. Sign up to become a road tripper and listen to more episodes at agaveroadtrip.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please let us know. And if you hated it, well, I'm sure you'll let us know that too. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Agave Road Trip. Agave Road Trip is a production of 10 Angry Pit Bulls, Inc. Agave Road Trip is powered by Simplecast. Thank you for listening to Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is food radio supported by you. For our freshest content, subscribe to our newsletter. To subscribe to the Heritage Radio newsletter, enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with Heritage Radio Network on Instagram and Twitter at heritage_radio. You can also find Heritage Radio Network at facebook.com/Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization using the power of educational storytelling about food to build a more equitable, resilient food system. Heritage Radio Network couldn't do that without support from listeners like you. Become a part of the world's most innovative community today. Subscribe to the shows you like. Tell your friends. And please join the Heritage Radio Network family by becoming a member. To become a member of the Heritage Radio Network, click on the beating heart of our homepage. Heritage Radio Network can become addictive. Programming you hear on Heritage Radio Network might lead you to eat, drink, and listen to more programming on Heritage Radio Network. If you drink, please do not drink and drive. Drink responsibly. Drive responsibly. Eat responsibly too. And listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly. To listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly, wear protective earbuds. While wearing protective earbuds, do not drive. Do not walk either. Sit in a comfortable chair. If that comfortable chair has a hard seat, please remember to stretch every 30 minutes. If you stretch every 30 minutes, please stay within your defined stretching capacity. And consult a doctor who specializes in stretching. If you don't have a doctor, maybe Dr. Ryan Acock, the Cocktail MD, can help you out. Thanks for listening. Agave Road Trip out.